Here you go. A powerful, emotional, suspense-building story crafted exactly for your YouTube channel. Tales and turns. Perfect pacing, strong hook, and 10 long paragraphs designed for a 2,000-word narration style. He mocked her right in front of the entire audience, tapping the polished grand piano like it belonged only to people of his class. She was just a simple woman trying to enjoy the music. Until the elitist pianist challenged her to a duel. The moment her fingers touched the keys, his smirk vanished and his life changed forever. Before we begin this unforgettable story, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Tales and Turns. Tell us where you're watching from in the comments. We love hearing from our amazing family around the world! Now, let's dive into a story that proves talent has no class and humility will always rise above arrogance. The concert hall buzzed with excitement as guests in suits and gowns filled every velvet seat. They had come to witness Adrian Leclerc, the self-proclaimed prodigy of Europe, a pianist known not only for his skill but also for his arrogance. Clara, a simple woman who worked at a local bakery, had saved for months just to sit in the cheapest seat in the back row. She loved music, not for prestige, but because it healed her, carried her, reminded her of her mother, who used to play softly every evening. Tonight, she just wanted to listen. But fate had a different plan. When intermission arrived, Adrian walked down from the stage, basking in the applause like it was owed to him. He noticed Clara near the piano, admiring its craftsmanship from a respectful distance. With a smirk, he said, "Careful. Instruments like this aren't for everyone." His tone was dripping with condescension, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Their quiet chuckles stung her, but Clara simply nodded, not wanting conflict. Adrian, however, wasn't finished. He tapped the bench and said, "Tell you what, why don't you give it a try? Let's see what your background has taught you." The Clara hesitated, her heart pounding. She didn't want to be a spectacle, but something inside her, maybe pride, maybe the memory of her mother's gentle encouragement, made her accept. The room stirred with interest as she sat down at the piano. Adrian crossed his arms, clearly expecting her to embarrass herself. The lights dimmed slightly, and suddenly, silence took over the hall. Clara took a breath, placed her trembling fingers on the keys, and began to play. The first note was soft, like a whisper. Then another, clearer, warmer, richer. The melody that followed wasn't flashy or complicated. It was storytelling through sound. A piece full of longing, loss, and hope, played with such emotion that the room felt transported to another world. Every phrase seemed to carry a heartbeat. Every rise and fall felt like a chapter. Adrian's smirk slowly faded as the audience leaned in, mesmerized. For the first time in his career, the prodigy of Europe felt small. By the time she touched the final note, the room was frozen. No one moved. No one breathed. And then, the applause erupted like a storm. People stood, clapping, cheering, shouting praises for the simple woman who had just outplayed one of the most celebrated pianists in the world. Clara stepped back from the bench, embarrassed by the attention, but grateful too. Adrian, however, was staring at her with a look she hadn't expected, not anger, but awe. Something inside him had cracked. He approached her slowly, no longer with arrogance, but with humility. "How? Where did you learn to play like that?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Clara told him the truth. How she had learned from her mother, who had passed away years ago, leaving behind only memories and an old, weathered piano. Adrian listened, silent, for once not thinking of his own greatness. He had spent years chasing perfection, technique, and recognition. Yet here was a woman who played without ego, only heart. And that heart had touched the entire room in a way he never had. The evening continued, but Adrian didn't return to the stage the same man. When he played his next piece, it wasn't flawless. It was emotional. Clara had awakened something in him, something he had buried beneath pride and pressure. The audience sensed it too. His music carried a vulnerability that had never been there before. And when he finished, he looked at Clara in the crowd and nodded, a silent thank you for changing his music, his mindset, and his life. After the show, he invited her backstage, not as a challenge but as a student seeking wisdom. He asked her to teach him how to play with feeling, how to let the music breathe, how to speak through it rather than dominate it. For the first time, Adrian admitted he didn't know everything. Clara smiled softly, knowing her mother would have been proud. She agreed, on one condition: that he promised to treat every musician, no matter how inexperienced, with respect. Adrian nodded solemnly. From that day on, he held that promise tightly. Their unlikely bond grew over time. Adrian visited the bakery often, not for pastries but for guidance, comfort, and humble conversation. Clara watched him transform from an elitist showman into a sincere artist who inspired students instead of intimidating them. The world noticed too. Critics wrote about the change in his style, describing it as deeper, more soulful, more human. Adrian never told them the real reason why, but he kept Clara's influence close to his heart. And so, a simple woman, quiet, gentle, and overlooked, ended up shifting the entire world of a man who believed he had nothing left to learn. Her music humbled him, her humility strengthened him, and her presence reminded him that greatness isn't in the spotlight. It's in sincerity. As the years passed, their friendship became a story musicians whispered about, a reminder that talent has no class, passion has no status, and sometimes all it takes is one unexpected melody to change a life forever.